Willkommen zurück im Körperforum, willkommen zurück aus Ihrer Mittagspause. Ich hoffe, Sie sind gut erholt. Jetzt geht es in die Nachmittagsrunde mit 4 wirklich hochklassigen Talks. Nun erwartet uns unser erster und einziger englischsprachiger Vortrag. Wenn Sie Übersetzung benötigen, wählen Sie bitte unten in Ihrer Zoom-Kontrollleiste rechts neben der Hand das Symbol Dolmetschen aus, dann wird unsere Simultanübersetzung für Sie zur Verfügung stehen. Im Anschluss, wenn wir Fragen an Dr. David Nabarro stellen können, bitte ich Sie, diese auf Englisch zu stellen, da wir keine Übersetzung für ihn zur Verfügung stellen. Die Fragen werden für alle anderen, die per Übersetzung zugeschaltet sind, dann auch übersetzt. Nun freue ich mich aber, David Nabarro willkommen zu heißen und wie immer heute heißt es erstmal Film ab.
Dr. David Nabarro ist ein britischer Arzt mit einer langen Karriere im internationalen Public Health Service. Er hat viele Jahrzehnte für den Generalsekretär der Vereinten Nationen oder den Generaldirektor der Weltgesundheitsorganisation gearbeitet. Seit Februar 2020 ist David Nabarro Sonderbeauftragter der WHO für den Kampf gegen das Coronavirus. Er glaubt, Restriktionen von oben reichen nicht gegen Covid. Vertrauen in die Krisenbewältigung entsteht nur durch lokale Führung. Dr. David Nabarro.
Well, thank you very much indeed for this opportunity to be with you all. What a delight to be here today for this very important moment. I'm actually going to be quite focused in what I say because from my perspective, the agenda of this Korber Stiftung event really comes to the center of what I believe is important in moving forward on COVID-19. The title of my presentation is to link together the global and the local. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer you a view of global challenges from here, my office in Switzerland, just close to the World Health Organization. And I'm going to focus very much on local solutions. Now, this COVID-19 virus is presenting humanity with an utterly new situation. It's a virus that's difficult to deal with in a way because it just doesn't do anything in a complete way, and it does a lot of things in a partial way. And that means that on every issue to do with the virus, humanity has to make decisions. And these decisions are ethical decisions. They're concerned with values. And of course, humanity finds it hard to make ethical decisions if there are factors that undermine the ability of people to work together. Dealing with ethics in the midst of conflict is particularly hard. And that's going to be an underlying theme of my remarks today. It is the ethical decisions associated with COVID that are actually causing the greatest problems for humanity. I'm going to suggest that over time, it will be possible for humanity to be able to deal with these ethical decisions because over time, as a community, we will all work out how to manage them. But I'm also going to say that that will take time. And for a number of weeks and perhaps months, there are going to be continued challenges in many different settings, simply because it becomes hard for groups of people to align around the ethical imperatives. But I want to say two things at the start of my remarks. The first is that COVID-19 is a disease associated with inequality. The poorer people have a much worse time in relation to this virus, both in terms of incidence and in terms of consequences. Secondly, COVID-19 reveals some of the frailties and inequities in our systems, frailties and inequities that we perhaps come to find ourselves accepting, but in reality, we've also find them unacceptable. So you will hear me refer to inequality, and you will also hear me referring to the revelations of COVID. So to help us with our ethical debates, let me just say, firstly, this virus is not going away anytime soon. Secondly, we might have candidate vaccines coming available in the next few weeks, but they are not going to prevent us from having to deal with the ethical issues. And we should not anticipate that a vaccine will lead to a completely relaxed situation. In fact, the vaccines will add to our ethical challenges. And thirdly, as we think through how to deal with this virus, we also need to understand that actually in many countries, the narrative about how to deal with it is just not clear. And so please do not anticipate that in dealing with this virus, we can make simple choices. So it's not a case of favoring either the economy or public health. The economy and public health are densely intertwined. Secondly, please do not imagine that dealing with this virus is just a case of shielding people in my age group over 70 or over 65, and the rest of the society gets on and does what it wants. That won't work. And despite the fact that there is quite a community of people advocating that approach, it's a non-starter. Thirdly, please don't imagine that somehow the only way that we're going to deal with this virus is either by lockdown or letting go. It's not going to be like that. In fact, lockdown is a really crude way of handling an infectious disease, and one that I would not advocate except as a last resort. Instead, we have to learn to establish ways to live with this virus as a constant presence in our societies, whilst at the same time getting on with our lives. So we have to find the correct path that enables us as a society to stop this virus from coming back in ferocious resurgence like we have now in Europe. And instead, we hold it at bay and get on with our lives. This, fortunately, is being done already in many East Asian countries. It's being approached in that way in several African countries. And on this particular issue, especially the relationship between the local and the global, we really need to learn from the East Asian and African countries that are showing ways to do it. And that sometimes is a challenge for those of us in Europe and North America. Here are my core suggestions to you all. Number one, we've got to get public health functions right. Number two, we've got to find ways to make sure that people's contributions are optimal. And number three, we need forms of leadership that will actually make certain that this happens in ways that link the local and the global. If I come to the public health functions first, all societies will need in the forthcoming weeks and months to be able to detect people with COVID-19, to investigate the spread of COVID-19, to interrupt transmission of COVID-19, and then when really necessary, to suppress outbreaks at the local level. And to have that capacity in every society in our world is going to call for an immense degree of local organization, of rediscovering what community level life is all about, and incorporating public health into integrated local level multi-stakeholder organization. And it's got to happen everywhere. And it's being done in very excellent ways in many East Asian countries. It's being done in African countries that have been practicing this kind of community-based response to infectious disease for centuries. But it's got to be done in Europe and North America, and it's got to be done quickly. This local integrated public health capacity has got to be everywhere in all nations at a very good and efficient degree of performance. And with that, we will have the necessary elements in society to hold the virus at bay. People themselves, my second point, have a huge contribution to make. There are 5 activities that every person must do at all times. Firstly, maintaining physical distance, but at the same time, also contributing to social interaction. It's the physical distance that matters. Secondly, face protection with masks, well-fitting, worn all the time, especially indoors. Thirdly, hand hygiene, coupled with cough etiquette and surface cleaning. Fourthly, isolation, anytime one is feeling ill before having the test, to make sure that you don't pass the virus on to others. Fifthly, paying special attention to the needs of those whose living conditions, working conditions, or actual realities put them at high risk. People in residential care, whether they're disabled or old or other needs, need special attention. People living in close quarters, in prisons or in residential guest worker accommodation need special attention. All the time, looking after the people who are most at risk. These 5 activities that I've mentioned are key for the public's contribution. If they're done, then the well-being of most of us will be greatly improved. But unless they're done and done well and done in a widespread way, we will all be at risk. And then thirdly, the absolute need for good political action and leadership to guide us. Consistency of messaging, rapid and robust responses when spikes build up, respect for people everywhere, because it is people who are at the center of the response. The virus is the enemy and people are the solution. And then humility. There's so much we don't know about this. There's so much we've got to learn about this. There's so much still to be discovered about this. We have to be humble. And so in conclusion, we're coming to terms with a new virus that is completely changing the basis under which human beings interact with each other. The only way we can do that is through exploring, through inventing, and through learning. And we do that as human systems. We don't do it in a mechanical way, we do it as people. And by working together as people and focusing primarily on local action, with particular attention to the needs of people who are at greatest risk, we will collectively, as the human race, be able to get ahead of this virus. If we don't do it, we will face major challenges. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, David Nabarro, for these inspiring words in complicated times. You were speaking of learning from each other. This is what we offer a platform for here for people from Germany, for decision makers from Germany. But I think it's an important advice of you that we maybe have to broaden our horizon and even look at places which we normally wouldn't expect to find good solutions, which are inspiration for us. I think this is what we all can learn. We can even learn more from you, but this is one very important point. You also said humanity has to make a decision. Speaking of decisions, there's one big decision in the go at the moment. What would you say the situation in the US regarding the presidential election, the uncertainties we have right now, mean for the international fight against COVID-19, speaking of linking the global to the local?
Thank you very much indeed. For many months now, my colleague Tedros, the Director General of the World Health Organization, has been saying that this virus requires unified responses from all political leaders. The virus actually benefits when there is political debate and discord about how to handle it. We've seen that in countries that have a different federal administration from a local administration, and when there is discord between political leaders at the local and federal level, all sorts of problems arise. No single country is safe against this virus unless all countries are working together. We've seen this with so many disease outbreaks. Then, if there is good cooperation between leaders, the local actors can adapt and adjust without anxiety or worry that they're going to get into difficulty from the people up above them. We have been hoping that the United States will play a major role in contributing to the global effort. After all, the US was at the center of so much work on infectious diseases in the last 5 decades. It has been disturbing that the United States has withdrawn from the World Health Organization. I don't want to comment on which particular individuals might win elections in different countries, but I want to say to everybody in this seminar, it is so important that political leaders appreciate the impact of inconsistent messaging and disputes on people's ability to deal with this kind of threat. It is difficult enough anyway, but it becomes much more difficult when the issue is treated like a political football.
I would like to invite our local leaders to ask questions now. We have the first one who will join. Oh no, the hand is down again. Okay, let's just wait a second. I have one more question, David, for you as special envoy of the World Health Organization's General Director. What gives you hope? Is there anything positive we could probably take along from this crisis? And after that, we will have a question from the audience, so I would like you to make it short.
Let me just be quick. What I am seeing from local community organizations all over the world is reminding me that at our heart, at our core, we humans are really good at working together in trying to deal with difficult issues. I think we're learning all the time that a difficult challenge cannot easily be handled if there is emotional conflict between people that actually makes it difficult for them to work together. I'm seeing numerous examples of brilliant collective action, reinventing and then learning in many different settings. And I want to encourage everybody to do what they can to start absorbing all these examples and recycling them, because they become the secret of the future of humanity. And if we can do it for COVID, we can do it for the destruction of nature, we can do it for inequities and migration challenges, we can do it for climate change as well. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Schweitzer, would you please activate your camera and your microphone so you can ask your question? This would be great. Mr. Schweitzer, can you hear me? Please activate your camera and your microphone. Okay, I think there's some technical problems. Though we're running out of time, David, I would like to thank you so much for your inspiring words.
Thank you.
Have a great day and all the best to you.
And I want to just say that the whole approach of Cobra Stiftung on this issue gives me enormous sense, not just of optimism, but actually a sense that there is going to be something better coming through this. Thank you for your leadership. Bye-bye.
Hat euch das Video gefallen? Dann abonniert unseren Kanal, um kein Video zu verpassen. Schaut gern auch in unserer Mediathek vorbei auf körper-stiftung.de/Mediathek und folgt uns auf Facebook, Instagram und Twitter. Danke fürs Zuschauen und bis bald.